actually very international also.
No, I can't. Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very glad that on this very hot day that you still managed and wanted to come here to the African Study Center for this lecture, so you're all very welcome. I am Margot Leegwater. I am a PhD student here at the African Study Center, and my research country is Rwanda, and that's why I am the chair of the Today, Dr. Olivier Bugara will give a lecture. He is currently a lecturer in new media and online journalism at the Erasmus School of History, Culture and Communication, which is part of the Erasmus University of Rotterdam. And in 2011 he had a PhD in media studies at the University of Amsterdam. He is the author of the book, we can see here the cover, called Complexities and Dangers of Remembering and Forgetting in Rwanda. It came out this spring, and it's also the title of his present talk. So I will give Olivier the floor for 40 to 45 minutes. Yes. Then we will have a short break because I think we need to drink a lot today. So then please take again some coffee or tea, and then we will still have a lot of time for discussions and questions. And afterwards there are drinks, and they are on the third floor in our bamboo lounge. So you're also very much invited for drinks afterwards. I here have an attendance list which I want to circulate, on which you can write your name and organization. And if you do not get the seminar announcements yet, you can also fill in your email address and name on the back side, so you will have the announcements in your email box. So I now would like to give the floor to Olivier.
Thanks, Margot. Thanks, everyone, for coming. And thanks to Africa Studies Center for inviting me to come and discuss with you some of the topics and the subjects and the controversies I discuss in my book, which is actually the first volume of the Memory Traps series that I have set out to write. It's an adventure, which I will explain in a second. As Margot said, I'm currently teaching at Erasmus University. The hectic week is starting next week, Monday. So it's it should be this week, but this week is just introductory week, telling students what is coming, what is awaiting them. But Monday, then the serious things. I assume it's the same here. Perhaps the first question I should immediately handle is, why have I decided to make my endeavor, or to turn my intellectual endeavor into a series? Simply because of a number of things. The first one is because there was a failure somewhere on my side. I had the impression that I failed, or I was failing to capture in a kind of comprehensive way the dangers and the complexities and the hidden things that our memories, our cultural memories in Rwanda put forward. I remember when I started writing this book in 2007, the working title was Understanding Rwanda, which many of you will say, how can you understand Rwanda at all? Can you claim that you can understand Rwanda? You can have a certain understanding, but you can't have the understanding of Rwanda. So I reached 400 pages. I said, no, this is going to be an encyclopedia. I have to change. So I kicked out a number of things and decided to write a kind of introduction to cultural memory viewed from the Rwandan perspective, and some of the dangers, I'm not talking about all the dangers, but some of the dangers that those memories we go around with can bring, or are bringing, or have brought to Rwanda. The second thing is that the series approach gave me some freedom to explore whatever topic I found relevant. This time around, I went through a number of topics. Name is one of them. The Gacaca codes is one of them, and many others. So there is no limit. The last page of this book is not the last page of my thinking. So my thinking goes on. And if football connects to memory in one way or another, I'm still free to deal with football and cultural memory. So I really am happy about the choice I made of making a series. The last reason is that I have a chance to hear from you today, to hear from you tomorrow on my site, which is memorytraps.com, to hear from you in a second in the bamboo, is it bar? In the bamboo lounge. And those criticisms, those compliments, even though I don't like compliments, those observations will be taken into account, whether they are negative, I don't believe in negativity, whether they are positive, I take them, and you will see that in volume 2, I will turn them into something positive, whatever nature they have. So those are the 3 F's behind my series idea. I invite you, if you want, to visit the website I dedicated to this series, which is memorytraps.com. And as you can see, there is a place for reader feedbacks. I have already got some. Cora, thank you for your feedback. There are others who wrote it in French. You can write it in Dutch if you want, or in Swahili, or in Kinyarwanda. I understand all of them. So feel free, if you have no time, to ask your question here, or if any question pops up later, there's a platform for that. Of course, Rwanda being Rwanda, I moderate the site, which is undemocratic, but it's unavoidable at the same time, because Rwanda being what it is, you have to make sure that there's a kind of gendarme place, making sure that things keep in line. I don't kick out negative criticism, even though I don't like negativity. So, volume 1, for those of you who have not yet read it, is about generalities, about memory. Because I have the impression that in Rwanda, we don't all understand memory in the same way. Actually, we don't even have a concept, a dedicated concept for memory. I always ask Rwandans when I have a chance to meet them, how do we call memoir or memory in Rwanda? And it's a challenge. And it's a challenge. Whenever they come out with a term, it becomes amateka. And I say, amateka translates the same thing as history as well. And amateka comes with some authority that history, as an academic endeavor, has with it. So how do we call memory? All those things that happened in the past and which we interpret in the present. We don't have. Of course, I understand it because the term memory itself got the current meaning in the 1920s with Halbach, and before him, I assume, memory was meaningless or meant something else than what we mean with it today. So I take my time, and this is the most or the least interesting chapter for a lay reader, because it goes so much into theories, but I can't do otherwise than just explain it theoretically, because there's no other way, there's no alternative of talking about memory without going into theories of presentism, that phenomenon of viewing the past through current glasses and changing what is to be changed, because you can't do otherwise. We are humans. I talk about futurism. Of course, everybody thinks of a better tomorrow. And when we talk about the past, there is a future we are projecting, we are envisaging. So we turn the past in a way that is favorable to our vision of the future. And you can't avoid it. And we have, of course, multiplicity. Each and everyone has his or her own vision of what happened or what is happening and the interpretation of it. We all watched the same things, but some would emphasize one detail while others would emphasize other details. Our backgrounds tell us or push us to view things differently. At the end, we have millions. Each Rwandan has his own or her own version of the past. And of course, if you analyze them, and that's what I argue in the book, there are broader ethnic lines that those memories, let's say, push to distinguish. The other thing I want to discuss, or which I discussed in the book, is that, of course, remembering is a universal phenomenon. It's not particular to Rwanda. But what I wanted to point out in the book was that remembering in Rwanda has some complexities that you don't find in other places in the world. For instance, the name, which I will discuss in a second, has a totally different function compared to what it is in the Netherlands, for instance. And that pattern of naming has its own dangers and its own complexities, but I will go into it in a second. We have our oral memory texts. In Rwanda, we are still an oral culture, orally oriented society. We prefer talk to books, which is not the same here. And of course, we have a very amazing language called the Kinyarwanda, which perhaps has one rival, the Kirundi, in terms of internal richness. But I will talk about it in how it traps us. Because the whole idea is that, yes, we have a past. Yes, we have a way we look at it from the present perspective. But those ways are full of obstacles, dangers. And my observation is that we do little to avoid or to confront those traps, which actually makes the traps even tighter and more dangerous. In the book, I also discuss the politics of memory. The focus, of course, is on what I would call the Third Republic, even though it's not officially called so. But I make some references to the First and Second Republics, also known, or which I also call the Hutu Republics. And I say that you always have a kind of dominant narrative. The First and Second Republic had the 1959 revolution as the creed, as the beginning of everything, and as the end of everything. Whoever wanted to operate within, let's say, the regime or the regime's philosophy had to adhere to the 1959 philosophy. The current narrative is built, as you can guess it, around the genocide, a certain vision of the genocide against the Tutsi. I'm saying a certain vision because there are many visions of that genocide, but one of them is favored, and that one constitutes the creed of the Third, or what I'm calling the Third Republic. Of course, there's history, education, which I'm not discussing here, and there's collective guilt, which I will discuss in more length at the end. And the last big topic I discuss in the book, this is just to tell you broadly what I discuss in the book, is cultural memory and autobiography. It's like a case study, because I start with theories of what cultural memory is, at least how I view it from the Rwandan perspective. I go on with a kind of politics of memory, how leaders push citizens to remember and forget in one way rather than in the other. And at the end, I demonstrate how that happens. So I take two autobiographies, two ladies, same age, born a few years before the 1959 events. One is Hutu, the other is Tutsi. They have almost a similar profile. They attended the same school in the same period, and they write about it. And they didn't consult each other before they wrote, because they wrote in a completely different perspective. And at the end, I say, look, this one is fetching from what I would call the Hutu collective memory, or the Hutu, or the memories related to the Hutus, Hutu identity, or Hutu ethnicity, and the other one is fetching from the reservoir I call the Tutsi-related, or the memories related to Tutsi ethnicity or identity. So the focus of this seminar is on 3 points. Naming as a way of remembering and forgetting, politics of remembering, which actually I will discuss in 2 parts, what I call self-imposed amnesia, which is the result of imposed amnesia. Amnesia is forced forgetting, if I could define it very quickly. And of course, at the end, I will talk about collective guilt, which is about the recent trend in somehow putting one ethnic group in one bag and calling them criminals and pushing them to accept it. Now, naming. Naming, as I said at the beginning, has a totally different function in our country. In the Netherlands, the father gives his name to the child, and the child to the child, and then it's a line. So at the end, we know that Janssen comes from Janssen, and that Janssen comes from the other Janssen, and it goes on until. So the only memory function there is that we know who was your father and forefather before. But in Rwanda, from the name, you can immediately say, hey, this is a man and this is a woman. In Rwanda, you can determine more or less the circumstances under which somebody was born. In Rwanda, you can detect, you can smell from the name the prevailing mood when the boy or the girl was born. Let me ask a question. Who can tell me whether Mukandori is a man or a woman? Not to Rwandans, of course. Yeah, just can guess. Just a guess. A woman. Does anyone who agrees that it's a woman? No, I don't. You are betraying me. If a Rwandan says yes, then it's okay. Mukandori is a woman, but there is nothing here that tells you that it's a woman. But you feel it, you smell it. How does it come that Mukandori can never be a man? I don't know. But of course, you have the Muka, which is the woman of, the lady of, the spouse of. But of course, you have the same MUK, Mukurarinda, which is a man. So the Western thinker who wants to be geometrical in the thinking would say, hey, so if Mukandori was a woman, so Mukurarinda should be a woman as well, because the same MU, no, then you got it wrong, because Mukurarinda is a man. Rucherubuga, he can never be a woman. Of course, in modern Rwanda, where we started copying from abroad, a man gives the name to his own name to the child, which actually is not our initial philosophy. Nambara, it tells everything about the period under which or during which the person was born. It means there was some war, perhaps in the literal sense, that there were some shootings, or in Hambara, the war in a figurative way, the mother fighting the father, or the neighbors fighting each other. Then you have a war, and the child is like a living memory monument that tells the society that when he was born, there was a war, or there was some ruzi, as they say in the Netherlands, in the neighborhood. Mbonameka, you will immediately smell in the name that the mother had just the time to put the child in the back, that the child was immediately dead 2 times. So what he sees is just she puts the baby in the back, but the baby dies soon after. So the child who is born after, I say, okay, I just put them here, but I never know what kind. So you know that there's something that happened in the past when the child was born. Same as Nhabyera, or Nhabyera Ngode. Actually, Nhabyera is the short for Nhabyera Ngode. Yeah, the child is born, but you're not totally happy because, at the time when your child was born, you did not celebrate. You were happy that she was born, but you did not celebrate because you were in jail, for instance. So I'm happy, but not totally happy. I don't see whether you're getting the hidden memory behind it, the reason why you were in jail, the reason why you are not rejoicing the way you should rejoice. So it's a loaded name. Yet it's a very usual name, normal name that you see in everyday life. Just a very quick anecdote. In 2005, when my daughter was born, I went to my municipality to register her. I knew from my integration courses that, of course, the child receives the mother's or the father's name. But I thought, being a multicultural nation, the Netherlands should allow people like me coming from other cultures to have their places. So I went to take, to register my daughter, and I took a folder which told me exactly what my integration courses told me, that I had two choices, or either my name or the name of my daughter, my wife. Wow. We decided to call our daughter my name. So I don't know whether you see the kind of contradiction in the name there. It's like my daughter is called John, because in my name you can see immediately that I'm a man. But they are having, you would then say, why didn't you give her then your wife's name? Oh, the law says that the name you give to the first child will go on to the second and next. So what if then I get a boy? She will go around with Jacqueline as a name. So that's the kind of, so the question I'm now I'm preparing myself to answer in the future is that my daughter will ask me, hey, Papa, you called Nyirubugara. Your brother is called something else. And my Opa, my grandfather, was called something else. How does this come that everybody is having another name? I will tell exactly the same story here. I will keep these slides. Look, in Rwanda, you're named after your father has considered a number of criteria, a number of things. And your name is unique because you are unique. You are not me. So you're telling me then that I'm not unique? No, no, no. I'm telling you you are unique, but you do not get a chance to be born in Rwanda. So from now on, you will be you, and then it's a line. It's not a name, it's just a line. Naming, of course, has some other, I would say, magical powers. Naming, a name for me, for a Rwandan in general, is like a statement, a mission statement. It tells you what you should do, who you should be. Mwari will be, or is asked to be brave. In general, he will be brave. Mutawazi, the rescuer, is asked, or is pushed, is encouraged to be a rescuer, to help people out who are in trouble. Name, and this is the part I like so much about names in Rwanda, they seal and unseal our fates. My Western colleagues are not happy when I talk about this because they say this is pure superstition. It doesn't exist. How can a name seal my name? And of course, I give them a number of examples from my country. And actually, I'm sure Rwandans who are in this room would agree with me. Names will follow you. A name will follow you until the end. And sometimes in very interesting cases, as I will give an example in a second. Mutware, the chief, is likely to be a chief in one way or another. A football team captain or whatever. But in himself, there's something calling him to be a chief. Nyirabyago. I know somebody who's called Nyirabyago, and he hasn't known anything else than just sorrow. It's like the name is constantly above her head. There's nothing good in her life. Everything is just sorrow and sorrow and sorrow. For those of you who read the book written by Mukasonga, Inyenzule Kafar, which is in the library here, there's a character called, not a character, person, because it's not a novel, a person called Ngoboka, which is like an order given to somebody, help me out, rescue me. And that man would actually be there on time to rescue the author when the militias would attack her. Is it something that happens just like this? Does it have anything to do with the name? I think so, but you're free to disagree with me. There's another booklet written by a genocide survivor called Rurangwa Riverien. One of his sisters called Byukusenge, which means literally wake up and ask. And that girl, who was I think 9 years at the time of the genocide, when her family was being genocided completely, she woke up from her unconsciousness and asked her mother, who was dead, "Mama, can I have water?" So, is it, when the guy was writing the book, he was not thinking about names. But suddenly, I find somebody who was named wake up and ask. And it's not fiction, it's real. Somebody who was called wake up and ask, before dying, wakes up and asks something. Say, there's something magical behind this naming thing. The last example I want to give is the one in the book by Sebarenzi, that God Sleeps in Rwanda. He explains himself why he was named Sebarenzi. Sebarenzi means chief shepherd. And while reading the book, I realized that he became the Speaker of the Parliament, so the chief of the MPs. So say, I won't give more examples. It's up to you. What I'm doing is just to push you to question each Rwandans, not perhaps here, but whomever you meet. Hey, what's the meaning of your name? Mine is a book, but I won't explain it here. So you will agree with me, or we will all agree with Kizerbo, who said, yeah, the name in Africa, it operates. It means something, but it has some power to operate as well. Let me give you a fun example here. This is a guy I went to the university with in Africa. He was doing philosophy. I was doing English literature. He was called, or he is called, Hisoni. Hisoni means I reject shame. I don't like shame. I hate shame. He wrote this book, and he explained why he changed his name and how. The initial name that the father gave him was Ni Rujirisoni. You might think the difference is very small. It's not like Janssen with double S and Janssen with one S. They sound the same, but there's a huge difference here. He explained that actually the Rugiri, the red part, contains death, because the Ru there represent death. Death has no shame. That's what his name means. So by removing the red part, the death has no shame became I reject shame. And by doing that, the guy removed death from his name and from his fate. How? Because before he was born, 2 of his sisters had died of malaria before the age of 2. So the father was desperate when he said, wow, death, why don't you have shame? Why don't you just let me alone? And the boy who was born when he was having this reasoning said, death, you should have shame because you've taken 2 of my daughters. And by just summoning death, the guy survived. But then he found himself in the army where death was everywhere, and he removed death from his name. And actually, during the war, he got a bomb, an explosion, which took a number of fingers from his hand. And actually, the name worked. Is it superstition? I don't know. But I'm realizing that it helped me out. Now, naming in politics, because that's where I'm heading to. Because from what I've said here, there's no danger. There's some complexities, there are some complexities in it, but there's no danger. But the danger comes when we enter politics, because the same pattern is observed. The RPF, which is now in power, is nicknamed Inkotanyi. Of course, this takes us back to the 19th century, when the King Rwabugiri was still, let's say, in power. This is the king who nicknamed himself Inkotanyi. Of course, people want to deny it, but the connection is really clear, at least from my perspective. Rwabugiri, according to Alexis Kagame, was the last warlike king. He was a tireless combatant, like all other Kigeri. All the regions bordering Rwanda, except Karagwe in Tanzania now, were targeted by his innumerable expeditions to which he almost always took part. So I think you can see a connection between the Inkotanyi of now and the Inkotanyi of the 19th century. I think, personally, I see a direct line from the 20th and 21st century down to the 19th century. What about the MDR party that was disbanded some years ago? Yeah, the name, there's even no hidden game here. The name takes us back to the late 50s. The Parmehutu was MDR as well. And actually the two men are related because Twagiramungu, who was the president, was the son-in-law of Kaibanda, the founder of MDR. So there's no philosophy to be done here. There's a direct link. And disbanding it is actually disbanding the Parmehutu, the idea of the Parmehutu of the 50s and the early... the Interahamwe, perhaps the most known term for the time being, in the period of the 90s, people would stop at its meaning and at the period of 1990s. Yeah, but it takes us back to the 60s, because if you read the rhetoric around the Hutu emancipation, our emancipationist movement, you will see the term Interahamwe coming back as those who support the first Hutu president, Kaibanda. So my interpretation, and you might say I'm speculating or I'm dreaming or whatever, but I'm trying to interpret and understand the naming. RPF history tells us that in the 60s or in the 70s, there was a movement called RANU, Rwandese National Union. If you read that name from right to left, you get UNAR, which is the monarchic party. RANU became RPF in 1987, and the same RPF nicknamed itself Inkotanyi with the meaning I've just given, and they attacked Rwanda in October 1990. And we know it was Tutsi dominated. On the other side, we have the Hutus who inherited power from the revolution of 1959, the same revolution that chased the Tutsis out. The naming here was a kind of response to the Inkotanyi. Interahamwe, as I said, were the supporters of the first Hutu president, the last who vanquished the Tutsi monarchy. And Inkotanyi was meant that Wabugiri was the last king who had dominated the Hutus totally. So it was, okay, so you're coming like Wabugiri who made ravages in our kingdoms. Okay, right. We're going to be like the latest Hutus who managed to vanquish you, becoming Interahamwe. It was like a response, a ping-pong game. And in the meantime, the MDR or MDR, the heirs of Parmehutu, who were actually the legitimate Interahamwe, say, oh, we are lost. They chose another name. What was it? Inhuba. Inhuba is like the youth of the MDR. Hey, shall we stop just at Inhuba, thunder? No, I go further into the 17th century to realize that there was a Hutu hero who was called Inhuba. And when the Hutu king of the Nduga was killed, the sole survivor of that place was Inhuba. So is MDR trying to say, okay, kill and kill and kill, but there will always be someone who's left. I know my interpretation might be artificial, slight, but yet there's room for reflection, and that's what I'm calling for. What about the name Rwanda? Because this is one of perhaps the most controversial conclusions I'm coming to in my book. Why is Rwanda called Rwanda? Why should we keep the name Rwanda? Why don't we remove that name and change it into something peaceful, something else, less bloody? Why? Because Rwanda means expansion. And expansion means war. And war means blood. The history of Rwanda tells us that the first place that was called Rwanda was in the east of Rwanda, the Rwanda Rwabinaga, Rwanda near Binaga, where I have put the circle. And from there, the Banyinya clan expanded the kingdom. And each place they conquered was called Rwanda, near the place or located in the place they have conquered. So one of the Rwandas was Rwanda Rwagasabo, Rwanda located in Gasabo, where I studied, I did my secondary school education. It's a place visible called Rwanda Rwagasabo. The next was Rwanda Rwakamonyi, Rwanda located in Kamonyi. So Rwanda is not what it is now, well, has not always been what it is now, but it's a process that meant war, a process that meant killings. And each king who was killed was emasculated. So his testicles was taken to the royal drum. The royal drum is the symbol, is like the flag now. When the Iraqi people burn the American flag, they're hurting America because they're burning the symbol of Rwanda at the time was a royal drum, which you see on the picture. And it's not a drawing, it's a real picture of. And the things you see there are the testicles of the Hutu kings of all those centuries. So, in my view, because each time that there was a new Rwanda, there was a new pair of testicles on the drum. So there's a sign of equality between the country, the name of the country, and the drum, because one symbolizes the other. And if you read the history of Rwanda in the late 1950s, the conflict between the people behind the king and the Hutu emancipationists was not a political project. It was just this drum. Some saying this thing should be removed. Say, no. This is the most symbolic, most respected thing in our kingdom. My question then would be, is it really acceptable that Rwanda keeps its name as it is, with all those liters of blood, I would say, that it symbolizes? I think it should be a good idea to change it, but it's up to those who have the power to do so, to think about it, not up to me. Now let me go quickly to the remembering of the politics. Perhaps I should skip this one. There is self-imposed amnesia and imposed amnesia. Imposed amnesia means that there is an authority that tells people what to remember and what to forget. And there's a part of the past, or a version of the past, or a vision of the past that is deemed the right past to be remembered, and the rest is just discarded. President Kagame said on 7th April 2007 that people were lying, that RPF killed, while RPF never killed anyone. That RPF was doing unacceptable things, while RPF just do praiseworthy things. Who is spreading those lies? RPF is there just to save people. So for those of you who know the history of Rwanda, you know that the RPF killed. But when its commander says the RPF did praiseworthy things, then those killings are turned into acceptable history, acceptable deeds. So they are pushing those who survived those killings to remember those killings as praiseworthy things, which is really dangerous. The result of that is that people now start getting this reflex of knowing what to remember and what to forget, knowing what to say and what never to say. And it becomes a kind of robotic thinking. Buckler Zistel went to Rwanda to ask people how they viewed, how they conceptualized their past. And what she realized was that interviewees frequently made their omissions explicit, stating that despite their public attitude and occasionally even their participation in reconciliation projects, in their hearts, and that's where the Rwandans' hard drive is, in their hearts it looked differently. Although I felt that it was important for my interviewees to communicate this reservation, how it really looked in their hearts was never revealed. And she was told, never trust people from what they say, because in their hearts it looks differently. So at the end we have two memories, and the one who is in peace is the one who knows the right past to remember. I'm not saying this just because of, with regard to the Third Republic, I'm saying it also for other regimes, but my focus of course has been on this regime because it's the one I have been observing. But of course, there are ways to detect that there is self-amnesia underway. And there are three ways. One is the silence, which is actually another way of speaking. There's pretense, somebody saying, but telling you that what I'm saying is not what I believe. And there is, of course, language use. Let me go through of them. This is a film made actually to serve as a PR piece for the Gacaca processes back in 2002. And it's in the library downstairs here. The teacher is asking primary school students or pupils to say what their parents coming from jails in the Gacaca process tell them at home. So, yeah, okay, that will be enough. I will explain the rest after. Okay, my interpretation of this is the following. The teacher is desperate. Of course, the subtitles are not helping at all because they can't do otherwise but just to give a kind of picture of what is being said. The teacher is saying, what are your parents saying when they come from jail? No answer. Second time, what do they say now when they reach home from jail? But they come now, what do they say when they reach home? So nobody wants to answer. And this one is translated with, well, while there's desperation in the question. And then the teacher goes, or resorts to another strategy. Hey, you, what do they say home? Nothing. And for me, this tells a story. They say nothing. Actually, I don't want to share my hidden things with you. And the other one, that's what I call pretense. Yes, they would come and ask for forgiveness. And of course, go back to life and share a cow, and etc., etc. Etc. means, and all those things that I always hear on the radio. So there's something crammed here. There's no sincere thinking going on. The last pupil is the one who is sincere. He's saying what he believes. And he's coming out with the official narrative. That actually if people died without any reason, we should understand why people should be in jail without any reason. Point. Language, as I said, is another thing that helps us, or should help researchers understand those who are pushing back their memories and those who are actually expressing their memories through the words they choose. Timothy Longman and Theonis Rutagengwa did a research in Rwanda about how people perceived the genocide. And their conclusion was that the Hutu were more likely to refer to Inhambara or war, to Ubgichanyi, the killings, to ibyabaye, the events, the happening, to amahano, the horror. And I completely agree with their conclusion. And of course, they tended to employ the word or the expression Itsemba Bugoko, which is extermination of an ethnic group, if at all, only secondarily. So it was not their favorite term. And some Hutu mentioned Itsemba Temba, meaning systematic killings, implying that actually their plight, the Hutus' plight, should be part of the 1994 story, while the Tutsi would employ the term Itsemba Bugoko almost exclusively. So next time when you go to Rwanda, far from public ears, ask people, hey, but what happened in Rwanda in 1994? So what you hear is either in Hambara, then you can guess, okay, so if it's in Hambara, this person must be, there's a chance that this person is it Itsemba Temba, systematic killing? Then this person must be, I'm not saying that this is so, I'm saying that there are reasons to think that it is so. Now, the latest, that's the news. Collective guilt. I was really, I won't say disappointed when I heard President Kagame's speech of June 30th, because he said in one sentence what I was trying to explain in 2 chapters. And he said it in June while my book was published in March. So it was like, oh my God. I went all through all those things to prove that there's some collective guilt in Rwanda. And the president comes just in 1 second, and he says, all Hutus are guilty of the genocide and should stand up and ask for forgiveness. When that speech was pronounced, tens of scholars, my friends in my network, emailed me, say, hey, Olivier, is it true that what we're reading on social media has been said? That the president is telling all the Hutus to stand up and ask for forgiveness? I said, yeah, unfortunately it's true. Unfortunately, it's true. Nobody could believe it. And perhaps nobody would believe it, but it was said, and it's like a new chapter in the history of Rwanda, where being a Hutu seems to have become a crime. I've translated or edited the speech into 2 minutes. I've taken like 2 fragments that tells in a few words what the president said.
bakomeze batinyuke bitandukanye n'iki bose bitandukanye n'iki umuntu azicaye icyo mu izina ryawe icyo uceceka niyo waba utagisheho ubu niyo mfite ikibazo nawe yewe naba ntari mu bishwe gukoresha izina ryawe wice nakwica nawe ntabwo nakureka ibyindi by'isoni ngo abantu baratinya kuvuga wowe niba utarishe haguruka gusabira imbabazi abishe mu izina ryawe nawe uti ntabwo bikwiye kubaho abishe twakoze ishyano mu tubabare utarishe wishe mu izina ryawe wakoze mu izina ryanjye kwica nawe mu tubabare ntabwo azabyongera ngo menye.
This is a really dangerous speech for those who are looking for hate speech. They should not go further than this, because he's saying this basically. Hey, there have been some Hutus who have been going around saying, yes, I have helped Tutsis out, so I have a special place in this country. No. Because there are other Hutus who killed in your name, so you should stand up and apologize. what about those who are going to be born tomorrow or who were born after 1994? Yes, you are guilty because you were born in a place where there should be no Tutsi. So your forefathers or your friends wanted to kill Tutsis so that you can live in a Tutsi-less place. So you're guilty. Personally, I don't really manage to put it into my system and integrate it, because it's like you're born with evil, and that's simply unacceptable. The second thing, and that's perhaps the most important one, he said somewhere, so you killed in my name, I would kill you as well. So I can suspect you of having killed in my name, so I come and kill you, and nobody will come after you. Yeah, I would kill you, and everybody laughs, and everybody claps their hands. It's like we accept it. How is it possible? We're playing around with our memories here. Those who killed, yes, come and apologize. Well, actually, be punished, because that's, you killed, there's no even apology possible. You should be punished for that, because apology would be the easiest way out. But didn't you kill? No. Then there's no problem with you. But then he says, if you didn't kill, then you have a problem with me, saying himself. Because, I think this is ridiculous. But of course, I had approached the issue differently from the Gacaca perspective. Because for me, the Gacaca was part of this collective guilt process. And my book is actually arguing that the collective guilt started with the Gacaca, and actually it culminated with this speech, which, if you speak to Rwandans who are not afraid of speaking, they will tell you, yeah, Gacaca has gone, but this one is really new. So let me show you a prosecutor with a degree in law in his pocket, a prosecutor general telling inmates what they should remember. That's memory. What they should remember and what they should understand with innocence. There are two things I want to say here. You heard somewhere that even children killed. But I think those who understand Kinyarwanda here will see something strange there. Perhaps I can go back to that part. There's something wrong here. Something completely wrong here. The prosecutor is saying that even the toddlers killed. And look at how it was translated here. A toddler is maximum 15 months old. And a prosecutor with a degree of law in his pocket is telling these women that even the toddlers killed. So if you connect this to what Kagame said in June, that even those to be born tomorrow will bear the responsibility, then immediately, I was ridiculous to point this out in my book, because it was so simple, it was obvious that even the toddlers kill, which is actually a problem. The second thing is the definition of innocence. These ladies, I'm not saying they're innocent, but they're trying to understand. But I didn't do anything. So if you are innocent, this is what you should do. You should say, I saw this, and this is the person who... So innocence means denunciation. So if you don't denounce, you are not innocent. So these are the wrong premises, I say, of Gacaca, because there's no other way out apart from just denouncing even your husband. The law actually should even prevent you or should protect you, give you the possibility to keep quiet when it's about your husband or your child. But here, you must have seen something, and they tell you what you must have seen. Otherwise, you can't prove your innocence. The next is this one, confession. And I'm taking this not from films made by critics. These are Gacaca PR films meant for all of us outside to show the success story of the Gacaca. This is one Hutu who was who was released from jail. This is what he says. So the man is saying, they came to jail and told me that, hey, you have no choice. There's just one choice. To confess and to have peace. So I didn't want even to make waves, meaning to defend myself. I just asked them to write immediately what they wanted me to confess to. And they wrote that. And at the end, at least I could go home and breathe some fresh air. The last one, which is my favorite. My favorite. For many reasons I will explain in a second. This man is called Gahutu. It's not fiction, it's a documentary. Gahutu means the Hutu man. And it's his name. And he represents, in my view, the Gacaca system. For many reasons I will explain. He's standing in front of the community, which is judging him.
icyatuma nyemera nakemezwa nuko uriya muntu yambonye kandi akavana ahantu n'abandi bantu bacu
abandi gatoya naho tunagutuye ku rukiko n'abandi bakubonye woheri ndagira amabwire
ndavuga nti barambika ariko nakemera
tega amasura mu rugo
mu byaha byose wemera bakubeshye mu byaha byose wemera ko bakubeshye nta na kimwe wemera nabasobanurira aho bigeze sinongera kwirwa ngira igihango nakemeye
Yeah, this is my favorite case because this guy, unlike the previous one, is trying to fight back, which actually is the meaning of justice. We accuse you, and you defend yourself. And if you see the strategy of the judge there, he has a book. A book. I'm really happy about the book. Am I the one who wrote the book? No. So why would you deny then what is in the book? I'm not the one who wrote the book. It's even a computer, the one that knows everything. So how would you deny things in the reference book? The old man is illiterate. The second thing is, I'm not a judge myself. I've never been in the judicial system, but I have some knowledge of how it happens, that the witness is key. There's no, it's like in journalism. You have no journalism without a source. In justice, you can't go further when there's no evidence, when there's no witness. And the illiterate man is asking the judge to bring a witness. Because if somebody wrote something in the book, it's based on a testimony of somebody. So if you bring a witness who saw me there, I will confess. And that's why the judge gets angry. Boom. So you are now giving orders to the court. You are giving orders to the court. That's number two. Number three, the question from the community. It's really amazing. Hey, Gautu, of all those false accusations, why don't you pick up one and confess to it? I really laugh when I hear it. Of all those false accusations, please just pick up one and confess. And the guy says, no, just all those accusations in the book, I confess to them. No, you're mocking the court. That's contempt of court. Just pick out one and confess. It's, no, 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 no. All of them. It's okay. I give up. And that's all. So I thank you so much for your attention. And I look forward to reading you on memorytraps.com. And I will be happy to publish your comments. And if there are questions, is it now or later?